Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This happened in 2014. I had just lost my job and was in the process of looking for a new one, but didn't have much money saved to pay bills in the meantime. So I asked my father if I could borrow $1,200 just to get me through to the next month, and I will pay him back as soon as I started working again. He sent the money, I paid my bills, and got a new job shortly after. As soon as I had the money to pay him back, I used the bank's online bill pay option to send him a check. I sent him a text and told him it was on the way and just assumed that was the end of it. Well, a week went by and he hadn't gotten it. I thought maybe it took a few days for the bank to actually process the bill pay option because I hadn't used it before. So I asked him to just wait for a few more days and see if it came. Several days later, it still hadn't gotten there. So I called the bank and asked them, and they told me I could stop payment on it for free. So I did. Then I just wrote a personal check and mailed it. I just assumed something went wrong with the online bill pay. About 2 months later, I got a check in the mail from a medical facility in a state my father lives in for $1,200. I called and asked them about it, and they told me on a recorded line that it was an overpayment on an account my father had with them, and it was a legitimate check and was mine to keep. At that point, I didn't associate it with the bill pay thing I had tried to do a couple months before. I did call my father to ask about his accounts with this place because there was no reason they should have my address to be sending me an overpayment if he had actually made one. He had no idea what was going on because he hadn't used that facility in a few years. I looked up the place on Google and finally it dawned on me. My father's address was on Saddlewood Drive at that point in time, but when I typed it into bill pay, my phone auto-corrected it to Sandalwood, and it just happened to be the same numerical address. And because my father's name was listed as a payee, they attempted to apply it to his account. So that's where my check had gone. I tried to call them again and explain what had happened, and the lady on the phone was extremely rude to me. She told me, "I've already talked to you about this. I don't know why you're calling again. We sent you what we owed you. This account is settled and we will not be talking about it again." Again, this is a recorded line. I asked if she was sure they owed me this money, and she practically shouted, "Yes!" And so I just smiled and hung up the phone. I deposited the check into my bank that day. They didn't try to call me back until about 6 weeks later. I had been wondering how long it would take them. The person who called me was a different lady, and she called me to tell me that a mistake had been made and that I owed them $1,200. I told her she was misinformed and she should go back and listen to the recorded calls that I had made to their office and give her the dates. I had been reassured multiple times that the money was mine and that I was in the clear to cash that check, and then I hung up. I haven't heard a single thing about it since then. Fair warning. This one gets a touch violent. I'm in no way advocating violence or attempting to glorify violence, just trying to tell my story of an entitled mother who played a stupid game and won several stupid prizes. So backstory, I'm in the Navy, and a few years ago I was stationed on a ship. As part of my duties, I would occasionally have to stand as an armed guard at the entrance to the piers where the ships were docked. One Saturday evening, I am standing guard, and for the first few hours, everything is going fine. A few pizza delivery drivers, a few totally not drunk sailors. Yes, it's a stereotype, but it's true. It's a typical evening. And then my quiet watch came to a screeching halt. The entitled mother came up to the gate and I asked to see her ID. And the following conversation ensues. For the sake of security, certain details are being left out. The entitled mother gives a very loud huff and pulls out her driver's license. "My son is on a ship." "Alright, ma'am, is he coming to get you?" "No, why?" "Well, I can't let you onto the pier without proper identification or an escort." "But I showed you my license." "Ma'am, in order to come onto the pier by yourself, you'll need a military ID or a temporary pass. Since you don't have any of those, then you'll need your son to come down from the ship and escort you on board. While I was talking with the entitled mother, another person came up with her military ID in hand, and I attempted to let her through. Practically yelling, the entitled mother says, "I was here first, you brat." She didn't use brat, she said another strong word. Ma'am, that is so uncalled for. What are you going to do about it, you jerk? Again, she didn't use jerk. She used a World War II German soldier analog. Starts with an N. I used every ounce of mental strength to not yell at her. Ma'am, step away from the gate. No, I am going to see my son. And she proceeds to attempt to push past me. I pulled my OC spray off my belt, moved in front of her, and now forcefully commanded, "Ma'am, this is your last warning. Step away from the gate or you will be sprayed." For those of you who don't know what OC spray is, it's oleoresin capsicum. Think of it as mace and pepper spray's evil cousin, like 100,000 hypodermic needles full of burning molten salt being drilled into your eyes, and it doesn't stop for hours. The entitled mother makes one more step towards the gate and she says, "Screw you, slur." I spray the entitled mother right in the face, toss the can away and tackle her to the ground and handcuff her. All the while she's yelling every obscenity in the book. She would have made a Civil War era sailor blush. She was threatening to sue too. "I know your boss. I'll get the president to get you fired." Which personally I would have loved to have seen. Yada yada yada, typical Karen threats with no effect. All while this was going, the other guard who was with me had called for the watch supervisor, and the girl who I was going to let through had called the base police. A few minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up, one of which was the county sheriff, an ambulance, and a watch supervisor. The medics started treating her OC contamination, and when they got the cuffs off, they were flex cuffs, she punched 2 of them and wiped OC onto the third. The base cop ran over and cuffed her with real cuffs now. I recount the encounter to the sheriff and the watch supervisor. The other guard and a girl do the same, and the entitled mother was arrested for trespassing on government property twice, failure to follow the instructions of military police, resisting arrest, and assaulting an EMT thrice. The best part was her son's ship pulled into port 2 days later. For anybody who may think I used excessive force with the OC spray, I had 5 reasonable options to stop the entitled mother. Verbal commands usually works with about 80% of sane and even slightly drunk or high people. Not gonna work on determined or stupid people though. Mock takedowns, hands-on physical maneuvers and joint holds. Unencumbered would have been the best option, but in 25+ pounds of gear and having a sidearm on makes these by themselves dangerous. Combined with OC or baton strikes makes these much more effective in gear. OC spray causes near instant reaction in 99% of people, with very rare severe reactions occurring in less than 1 in 50,000. Steel retractable baton. While it would have been effective, the baton was not necessary. Plus, well-placed strikes can easily break bone, and in the worst-case scenario for a body strike, cause a heart attack. 9mm sidearm. At no point during the encounter was a definition for deadly force authorization met, nor did I feel that my life, anybody else's life, or the docked ship's safety were threatened by the entitled mother's action. Even if the entitled mother had pulled a knife, OC would be more than sufficient to disarm just about anybody. The full effects wear off in about 5 hours by themselves and about an hour or 2 with medical care. My husband, 65, and I, 47, have been married for 10 years. After my husband's retirement party, the discussion of wills and inheritance came up, and my husband informed me that he's leaving our marital home to his daughter, 30-year-old, in his will, which left me feeling completely blindsided and shocked. I'm aware that due to our significant age difference, I will most likely outlive my husband by many years. I will probably have to spend the last decades of my life alone. So I was really upset but also angry to learn that I will most likely be kicked out of our house after my husband's death and left homeless. My husband explained to me that I knew the house belonged to his late wife, who inherited it from her parents, and that I couldn't possibly expect him not to leave his house to their daughter. I replied that the house now belongs to him, and as his wife, I have a right to my marital home, and it's just not fair that I will be kicked out of our home after I spent so much time and effort redecorating it and making it my own, and become homeless after his death because I'm a housewife and have nowhere else to go. He has an obligation to ensure my financial safety after his death. He said that it will be incredibly unfair to his daughter and his late wife if I inherit the house, and his wife would have never wanted that. His wife died unexpectedly at a relatively young age before she got around to making a will, so my husband automatically got the house as per inheritance laws. He also explained that I am the sole beneficiary of his life insurance, and any savings left will be equally divided between me and his daughter. However, I don't think this money will be enough for me to survive the rest of my life, especially as my husband plans on having expensive cruises and holidays for the rest of his retirement. And this is where, unfortunately, our argument escalated and we started yelling at each other. I told him he's screwing me over after everything I had done for him, after I gave up my job and my career for him to look after our home, and that I deserve to be compensated. He retorted that he never asked me to become a housewife and it was completely my own choice, that I knew the risks and benefits and made an informed choice, and he will be leaving a reasonable inheritance, and if I'm not happy with it, I should go back to work. I told him I never knew that I wouldn't get the house and that it's too late for me to return after being out for over 10 years, that he's a jerk for leaving me stranded like this, and that this is not what I agreed to, and he's being a sexist prick by not recognizing my contribution to our family. He laughed at me, saying that I never made any kind of financial contribution, as we hired cleaners and housekeepers to do most of the chores, and if anything, I was a drain all the money I spent. Honestly, at this point, I was so enraged and in tears, and I screamed at him that he's being completely cruel to me and locked myself in the guest room. So I don't know, am I the jerk for wanting the house if my husband dies before me? Edit. Okay, I got it. Clearly I'm the jerk. I will apologize to my husband and try to look for a job, this time something not so stressful and something I will enjoy, and build my own savings. I don't want to divorce my husband and take half. I honestly didn't marry him for money. I didn't even know he was wealthy until 6 months into our relationship. Honestly, when I met him, I was done with dating and so jaded with men after being cheated on quite a bit, until he came along and honestly kinda swept me off my feet. He was so thoughtful, kind, and loyal, and our socio-political opinions just matched. We saw the world in a similar manner, and I never thought I would be with someone much older, but he was everything I have ever wanted. I used to work in customer service jobs, and in my last job, I was a 999 call handler, and yeah, it was really bad for my mental health, and I made minimum wage. My husband encouraged me to do something I enjoyed instead, as he saw how it stressed me out. Although I did intend to find a more relaxing job, and honestly, yeah, I enjoy being at home and pursuing hobbies and doing things at my own pace. I admit it was a really comfortable life, and I let him financially take care of me and become financially dependent on him. It was way easier than the grating and the grinding. I had grown really attached to the house, which I wouldn't have done had I known it wouldn't ever be mine, or that I would be kicked out of it at some point. I honestly didn't know it belonged to his late wife's parents, and I was just so shocked and blindsided. I just thought his wife's name was on a deed, as she was the main earner at that time. But yeah, I realized that it's completely my fault for assuming that I was acting entitled. I will apologize to my husband and to my stepdaughter as well. Let me take you back to a day when my life took an unexpected turn, all because of an entitled bully. I was sitting on a school bus looking out the window at the telephone poles zooming by. Yep, that was my little thing, imagining my imaginary man jumping over each pole with ease. It was my escape from the mundane. Then cue the antagonist of this tale, my bully. The 8th grader was a knack for making my life a bit more challenging. He strutted onto the bus like he owned the place, and guess who he decided to target? You guessed it. Yours truly. I was nestled comfortably in my seat. But did he care? Of course not.
Hey loser, move your scrawny butt, I wanna sit here.
He barked at me. I tried to play it cool, keeping my voice steady. There are plenty of other seats, you know, he scoffed.
I don't want those seats, I want this one. Get up.
I stood my ground. Sorry man, but I'm good here. Plenty of space elsewhere. Cue the expected argument back in force. Me trying to stand my ground and him thinking he could bulldoze through anything. I couldn't help but let out a dry chuckle. Was this really happening? Then out of nowhere it happened. He slammed my head against the window. Pain shot through me, and I could feel the sting spreading. But I refused to let him see me break. I looked at the window, focusing on the pulse again, determined on not letting him have the satisfaction of my tears. That day, as I nursed my wounded pride, an idea began to form in my mind. A plan that was equal parts daring and ridiculous, but maybe just crazy enough to work. You see, this bully had a little secret. He was into chewing tobacco. Gross, I know. But this little tidbit would soon become my secret weapon. Fast forward to the next morning and I was waiting at my usual bus stop. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. As the bus pulled up, I hopped on and took my seat. My palms were sweaty, but I was insistent to go through with it. As we rode along, I mustered up the courage to approach the bus driver. She was a kind woman, always wearing a warm smile, and I leaned in. Hey, I think that guy, you know, the kid from yesterday, he's chewing tobacco on the bus. She shot a look of concern. Are you sure? I nodded. Yeah, I saw it. He's been sneaky about it though. Alright, thanks for letting me know. Now here comes the fun part. The bully had been crafty enough to hide his habits from prying eyes, but not this time. The bus driver pulled him aside when he reached the front of the bus, and she asked him to empty his pockets. My heart was practically dancing in my chest as I watched it unfold. Lo and behold, the chew was found, and it was game over for our entitled bully. Off he was sent to the principal's office, facing what he did. But wait, there is more. Turns out, this wasn't his first rodeo. It was the third time he'd been caught with chew. Daddy Dearest had been supplying him, and the school had had enough of his shenanigans. He was expelled. I got wind of the news through my bus buddy, who seemed to think I had the superpower of predicting the future. Dude, did you hear? The bully got expelled. I thought you were gonna come in with a cape or something. I just laughed, shaking my head. Nah man, no capes for me. So yeah, here is to us underdogs, doing whatever we could to survive. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.